do a review of the new Spiral movie. If you don't, you will be forced to watch Twilight for the next 24 hours with no breaks. The choice is yours. No!
He could be anywhere. He could be anyone. We're gonna tear this city apart.
Hey guys, welcome back to Pop Culture with Pat. Today we are talking about Spiral, the new Saw movie starring Chris Rock. And this is going to be a non-spoiler review, so you guys don't have to worry about that. Basically, the plot of this film, you have Detective Banks, which is played by Chris Rock, and he is at the center of a copycat Jigsaw killer's game, and he is running out of time to solve this case because bodies are starting to pile up throughout the city. So I'm going to start this thing off, just letting you guys know that I stopped watching the Saw movies, I think around Saw 5 is when I I own those on DVD. And I don't think I've ever actually gone back and watched, 6, 7, Jigsaw, and then this would be the first one, since then. So I didn't see the last couple, just because, at that point I was kind of okay, to me, it got a little, boring as far as, in my opinion. So I will let you guys know that, I'm not, the biggest, Saw fan, because I know this series definitely has some big fans out there. So this is someone who hasn't really watched, the last couple of films. So I just want to kind of give you guys that preface, before we go into the review. But I was interested in seeing, what they were going to be doing because, I had heard that Chris Rock, he had came to these guys and was like, hey, I had this new pitch for, a Saw movie, want to do something a little bit different. And I had heard that and I was like, okay, cool. Yeah, it's something, fresh to kind of switch it up. I was definitely, interested in checking this out. And recently, people that have been in comedy, comedians and stuff like that, they've really had some success in the horror genre, like Jordan Peele, John Krasinski. So I was definitely interested to see what Chris Rock could possibly, bring to this table as far as this Spiral movie goes. But overall, guys, I'll let you know pretty much right away that it's I really didn't care for this movie that much at all. And I was more, it wasn't something where it's oh my god, this is absolute garbage. I was just, I think, more really let down by the film because I was interested in seeing it and I was cool, they're doing something different, maybe this will get me more interested in the series again. But without going again into too much detail as far as spoilers go, basically the plot of this movie for the most part kind of deals with a bunch of corrupt cops. And I thought that, there definitely, I think, was an interesting story buried in, this film. I just feel overall they didn't really execute it to its max. Again, at least in my opinion, as far as that goes. Basically, none of these characters I thought were really likable. And I know that's kind of the point with this film because, you were dealing with corrupt cops. So it's kind of hard to really some of those characters. But a lot of times in movies, even when you have villains and stuff like that, goes as far as just the actors, they'll bring some sort of, charisma or something about them that it's okay, yeah, they're kind of a piece of shit, but I still, appreciate this character, because they have that charisma or they bring something to the role. And I just, outside of Chris Rock, and even he, I didn't think was amazing in this role. Outside of him, there wasn't really any characters where I was oh yeah, that's, they're a really interesting character. So just overall, I wasn't really attached to any of them. So as far as when they were, some of them were put into traps and stuff like that go, I wasn't really invested, didn't really care. And it's even as far as even if they were bad, it's at least you could be oh yeah, you kind of want to see this person what's gonna happen to them as far as a trap goes. But just in this case, it's I really couldn't care less. So that was definitely a major letdown for me. And as far as the traps goes, because, with the Saw franchise, it's really at this point, the traps have kind of become one of the main attractions as far as the franchise goes. And I know they're trying to do something a little bit different, but come on now, that's what a lot of people go to see these films for, to see what they're going to do. It's kind of turned into, in a way, basically kind of what the Final Destination series did, even though I liked 5, and actually I pretty much like all those movies except for 4 was definitely the worst one. But basically, what I'm saying is, with those films, a lot of people, they wanted to see, the creative way that they were going to kill people off in those films as far as, that series goes. And I feel with Saw, the traps are definitely one of the main attractions as far as these films go. And I feel in this film, and it's something that I've noticed definitely as kind of the franchise went on, some of the traps were a little bit like more tame. And I don't necessarily need it to be like, super bloody or anything like that, because I'm not really like a huge like gore person as far as like horror movie goes. But I just felt like, I don't know, they were kind of like tame to me. And then also, and I noticed some other people like mention this too, I also felt like these traps, there was almost no real way for the characters to survive. Like, even if they like, stopped whatever was happening with the traps like going on, there was almost no real way for them to survive, which I felt like with the original Saw movies, for the most part, there was a chance that you could actually, like, you would definitely like hurt yourself, but there's definitely a chance that you could survive, Jigsaw's like traps. So I was like, doesn't really seem like kind of fair. So that kind of like took away from it for me a little bit like as well. Now, as far as like the killer goes, I'm not going to give like any clues as to like who it is or whatever, but let's just say, I was really disappointed with what they did as far as like, the killer in this film goes. I found the voice to be very like weird, and it just wasn't like intimidating and like at all. At least with the original, Saw like films, I felt like, Tobin Bell's, like his voice, it was just like really kind of like creepy and like intimidating. And they did this weird thing here with this one, and he had like a pig mask or whatever, and it just sounded like he was like sucking like helium or something like that. So it was just really kind of weird, wasn't intimidating at all. And just like the whole reveal, thing at the end, it's like, yeah, I kind of like saw that like coming. So I don't know, that whole part was also just like really disappointing for me, which really sucked, because it's like, yeah, you want to have like, you're doing a brand new thing. You want to bring in this like new killer and just like really make him like cool, like and intimidating. And I just didn't think that was the case. I also think, as far as just like the overall, how the film is like shot and stuff like that goes, I felt it was almost like a little too like clean for me. Like the original film, which is definitely by far my favorite in like the franchise, and like the first like couple, they had kind of that like dark, gritty like vibe to them. And I don't know, for this movie, for some reason for me, it just felt like a little like, too clean cut in like certain aspects. There definitely was some darker things like in the movie, but just the way it was shot, I don't know, it was a little too like clean for me like overall. I like that dark, gritty vibe from like the first couple like Saw movies, and that just didn't have that here. So overall, guys, I just really think there was a lot of missed opportunities with this film. I do think that somewhere in this story, there was like a really, good, like interesting, like idea, story buried there somewhere. I just feel like they really didn't execute it. And just like, overall, it just kind of felt or left me feeling really disappointed, because I was looking forward to this, even though it's like what, the 8th or like 9th entry in like the franchise at this point. They were trying to do something new, and I do give them props for that, because it's like you're not trying to do like the same thing, but it just wasn't for me at all. But I mean, you guys, definitely, if you're a fan of the Saw franchise, check it out, make up like your own opinion. I'm just like a guy on the internet just giving you guys, my initial thoughts on it. As far as like a score goes, it's going to be a 4 out of 10 for me. Definitely wasn't feeling this one. Won't be something that I'm going to be picking up. But yeah, definitely, check it out for yourself, and let me know, what you guys thought of the film, overall down below in the comments. Are you a big fan of the Saw franchise? Was this something that you were really looking forward to? I want to hear all your thoughts down below. Again, if you guys are new to the channel, please hit that subscribe button as well as the bell button next to it. That way you get notifications for all my new videos. Also, please give this video a thumbs up, really helps. And I will be posting a new interview that I just did this weekend pretty soon. Really excited to share that with you guys. And as always, please make sure to check back for more Pop Culture with Pat.